Waldensians in the 12th century, but this is not really accurate. Whilst it is true that Peter Waldo was a merchantman from Lyon, he did sell all of his goods and commit his life to the preaching of the gospel. He was not the first Waldensian, and their roots trace back much before him. In fact, one of the early names for the Waldensians was actually the word Insabati, showing clearly that the Waldensians were Sabbath keepers, as they were named after the very day upon which they worshipped. As the Waldensians were coming up in the early centuries, and the Roman Catholic Church was forming as well, both of them saw the heathens around them as a mission field. But whilst the Roman Catholic Church used the power of the law and the sword and political alliances to win people over, the Waldensians put their faith in the strength of God's word. When you gaze on the magnificent mountains that surround us, you cannot but admit that God provided a safe retreat for his people. To the Waldensians was given the task of passing the light on to the Protestants of modern time and penetrating the darkness with true Bible doctrine. Indeed, they maintained longer than any group in the struggle to preserve the Bible and primitive Christianity. In upcoming episodes, we're going to see the caves in which they hid and where they met for worship. We're going to see the places where they trained their young people in how to study the Bible and in how to be missionaries. We're also going to climb mountains and see the cliffs over which the Waldensians were hurled to their death in times of persecution. Truly, the Waldensians stand to us today as a group of people who believed in the Bible, as a group of people who believed in mission service. They are a key part of our spiritual lineage today.
It's here.
It's here.
It's finally here. Adventist Television Network is here, the one-stop network for Christians or anyone wanting to learn how they can develop a more meaningful relationship with Christ. Tune in to Central Cable for daily programs on health and wellness, current events, relationships, spiritual growth, and of course, musical praise, all catering to our local urban audience.
The book of Revelation depicts God's people as flying in the midst of heaven as angels, proclaiming the everlasting gospel. ATN will allow you to reach the world with God's message and reap the harvest. But more, it will help you to grow as a disciple. It will keep you connected with your church. Above all things, it will prepare you to meet Jesus when he comes.
ATN is a non-profit initiative. If you want to do your small part in reaching people with the good news of Jesus, you can partner with ATN by offering your generous tax-deductible gifts. Adventist Television Network is an official partner of 3ABN's Dare to Dream Network. Keep up with special services, programs, and events brought to you by the local Seventh-day Adventist Church on Central Cable and streaming on Central Belize Mission Facebook and YouTube pages.
Brothers and sisters, we are looking forward for your financial support to the Adventist Television Network.
ATN and Dare to Dream, the urban Christian lifestyle television.
Reduce your risk of viral illness like the flu or the coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water or with an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing or sneezing with a tissue. Throw away, then wash hands immediately. Avoid close contact with anyone who has the cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or nearest health center and share your travel history. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health. Stay healthy while traveling. Frequently wash hands with soap and clean running water or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. Avoid close contact with persons suffering from any cold or flu-like symptoms. Avoid travel if you have any cold or flu-like symptoms. Avoid travel unless absolutely necessary to any location that currently has local spread of the COVID-19. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or nearest health center and share your travel history. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
Another edition of Defining Your Health. I hope that you're doing well on this beautiful Tuesday morning. I'm your host, Dinah Moralez. And this morning we have once again a very special topic for our health show, and it's mental health. A topic we don't really hear much about that we need to deal with. So today we have a very special guest, Mrs. Deshane Lopez, and she is a clinical psychologist at Counseling and Psychological Service. She has been practicing in this field for over 4 years. She has a bachelor in psychology and a master's degree in clinical psychology. So, good morning, Ms. Gutierrez. Thank you for being here with us.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
Yes, and before we start, I must say we're in a very beautiful room. I feel so relaxed, and I know that's the atmosphere that you want to give to your clients. Now, before we dive into the topic of mental health, which is a very important topic, let's talk a little bit about you. What made you choose this career path?
Well, I always smile when I think about my journey. I've been a peer counselor in high school and junior college. And I think junior college was where I really decided that this is the field that I wanted. I was a part of the peer counseling group, and we went on a school retreat. And it was at that school retreat I realized that everybody, regardless of their socioeconomic status, their ethnicity, we all go through things.
Right.
And so I realized that having our school counselor was beneficial to us. And I said, well, this is what I would want to do. And then I started to work as an office administrator for the Mental Health Association. And I realized then more services was needed, and we didn't have people to refer to. And so I decided to do my bachelor's in psychology. And when I came back, I worked as a counselor at the Community Counseling Center. I worked there for 2 years. And again, we needed specialists to refer to. And I had to tell parents, well, we don't have this service. If you want to be able to get this service, you need to go out of the country. And that was always heartbreaking. And so I spoke to my mom, and she said, well, it's time for you to go back for your next degree. And so I decided to do clinical psychology because I wanted to be able to do therapy as well as assessments, which was something that we lacked in the country. And I also had my little sister that I said, well, you know what, if she had done an assessment, I would have been able to help her much more. So I decided to venture into the field of clinical psych, and I've been happy with it ever since.
Right, and just from the beautiful smile on your face, I can see this is your calling. This is what you wanted to do, right? So, clinical psychology services, business that offers psychology and assessment therapy.
Yes, so we offer counseling as well as assessments.
Right, and it's owned by yourself.
Yes.
Right, so that's a very great accomplishment there. Let's talk a little bit about mental health now. It's something that has had a taboo on it for quite some time. And it's something that I think really needs to be spoke about a lot more so that persons can kind of move away from this way of thinking. Let's define the term mental health, because when you hear mental health or when you speak of it in that connotation, people right away, you're crazy, something's wrong. But mental health, just as you will have physical, spiritual health, it encompasses a lot of things. So let's talk a little. Give me a general definition of the term mental health.
Okay. So mental health encompasses a person's overall well-being. That includes their spirituality, their academics, their finances, their social relationship, and their personal well-being. So it's not just one component, and we like to think about mental health as a mental illness, but
Right.
your mental health is everything that makes you you. And so when people think about mental health, that's what I want them to think about. Every aspect of your life is your mental health.
The good and the
The
bad.
good and the bad. People like to say mental health is just as important as physical health. I say something quite different. Mental health
More.
is physical health. It's
Oh.
all those things. It's physical health, it's
okay.
spiritual health, it's all those, because again, it encompasses everything. When we're happy, we feel it in our entire being, right? We
Right.
smile, there's a change. We feel that good feeling inside. So we're having all of
Positive
these.
energy.
Exactly. Sometimes we want to move, we want to dance. So we get all of that in one. And it's the same way when we're sad. We have the sad feeling, we have it inside, there is low energy. So if you notice, there's not one or the other, it's all of them encompassed together. So that's what really mental health is, encompassing everything.
The holistic being.
Yes.
And let's talk a little bit about the importance, because we will take care of our physical health if needs be. We see a doctor, we go if something's wrong. We will even take care of our spiritual health, go to church, but we don't put that much effort, I would say, into the mental health. Why? As we mentioned, there's taboo. There's several reasons as to why a person doesn't do that, but we want to talk about the importance so that our viewers at home who's watching this program, they can learn from this program today and put more attention to their mental health. So can you share with us what are some main reason why it's good for us to take care of our mental health?
Our mental health controls everything. Like I said, because it encompasses the different factors, your spiritual, your financial, your academics, your occupation, your social. A challenge in any area have a domino effect. So if you think of a computer system, our mental health or our brain, our mental well-being is like a CPU.
Right.
And so when we're having issues with the motherboard, everything you start to have challenges, right?
Touching and yeah,
exactly. So it's the
sore.
same thing with our overall well-being. Our mental health is important. We like to focus on physical because that's easier to talk about. We might even talk about our spiritual faster. When we talk about what's happening emotionally, what's happening psychologically, we oftentimes try to compartmentalize because one, we associate being strong with being able to power through whatever it is that you're dealing
going
with. But imagine powering through all of those things and not feeling too overwhelmed. Imagine having a balanced life that when you exercise and have that good feeling, it transcends to over all the different areas. Imagine, because whenever we talk about mental illness or we talk about struggling with stress, it affects our social life, it affects our work, it affects our relationship, even affects the way how we deal with ourselves. So if we focus on our mental well-being overall in all the different areas, and we spend a lot of time on our emotional, psychological, the areas that we freely do, that will even enhance. So if you feel good exercising, imagine being with your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, and that magnify times 2.
Right.
So that's what I want people to think
And
about.
I like that way in which you I would say compact all of it, because people put a lot of attention. Okay, I need to eat right. I need to put in the right foods. I need to exercise. And I need to drink enough water, and so because that will make me healthy. But you can do all those things, and you're emotionally and mentally you're not in the right state of mind. You still won't feel completely at peace or happy, because there's some element that is still being neglected. So when you put it that way, that imagine doing all of those things and then your mental health is on spot, then imagine that entire feeling that you have, not just a short one with I'm eating right and thing, but you feel holistically renewed. And I really, really like that, because that is, I would say, the focus that we need to have. That, okay, it's nice to eat good and do all these things, but what's more important if I put
the same effort into my physical health as with my mental health and my spiritual health, and have all of these elements at its optimum best or being positive, then I have a whole new self.
Yeah.
I
And
feel good.
whatever good feeling you have, that increases.
It increases.
Right?
And
So you don't crash
right.
because you're balanced.
Right. So whenever a problem comes in, then because you're balanced, then you will know how to maneuver yourself
Yes.
through all these obstacles. So that's very talking about it sounds so how you would say positive. So I said, what's it? Merry. That's the word I'm looking for. It sounds so merry. Now, what doesn't sound the same way is when we leave mental health neglected, and I'm not just talking neglected for a month or so. I'm talking for years. And coming into your office, I read something which is very, I think, pivotal to this whole experience. It said that just as how being hurt is carried on into generation, so can healing. And that is so true, Miss Deshane, because you have what they call it generational curse, but you have problems that happen in family from way before, and then it trickles down, and it's a continuous trend. And then at the end of the day, you wonder why the family is so broken, why we can't get it right, why this family don't talk to that family. And then you sit down and go, why can't we fix it? Why isn't there a fix? But we will go farther on into this discussion of talking about how we provide healing and stuff like that. But just as how the hurt is transferred, the healing can transfer, but it starts with one person. And when it's neglected, it's when it transcends into generation. So let's talk a little bit of what happens when it's neglected.
So there are so many different things. Again, because we talk about mental health being different things, our spiritual, physical, financial, and all these things. So when we neglect our psychological / emotional component, what happens is over time, we start to have difficulties physically. So for example, when we feel sad, we have gestational issues, right?
Right.
So over an extended period of time, we start to have medical issues. It's easier to have type 2 diabetes. You have ulcers. You have so many different things because it leads into other. So while you don't focus on your psychological, your emotional health, the other areas over time start to get impacted because they are running on overdrive, because you're maximizing time in those areas. And so sometimes people will say, well, I eat healthy, I exercise, why am I experiencing this? Have you focused on your psychological, emotional health? Because then over time, the part that you're focusing on start to go in overdrive, and that means you don't get real rest. When you sleep, you don't get rest, so that your neurons and how your brain communicate don't get true rest. It's still working. So a lot of time people sleep and they're crashing. They don't feel renewed. So again, not sleeping, conscious, your concentration, your work productivity start to increase. And so a lot of times people will have physiological challenges. A lot of times we'll have a lot of people feel anxiety a lot. And sometimes the anxiety is just manifesting something that you're dealing with, right? So because it's easier. Your body, we respond to what is happening to our body more than what is happening psychologically. We like to suppress what we're feeling and say, I'm not dealing with that. I won't deal with that. This is another time. I have to power through. But what happens is because we're not dealing with it, we're not getting that healing process. I like to believe that our brain can heal itself just as how when we get a cut, we get a scalp and it starts to heal. But whenever we say, and I deal with that right now, I will focus on something else, and you just push through and you never go back, then you stop that healing process. So the clots emotionally not really get healed, and so it just stuck.
Eventually you'll have a blockage.
Exactly, have a blockage. So now you have a physiological blockage. I like to tell people this. When was the last time you got mad? And when you got mad, how intense was that anger? Because sometimes it's not about that current situation. It's about all the things that you've been angry before, and you never dealt with it. So when you open that door, that surge of emotion is strong.
That That is very true. I must agree with that because even when you will see sometime, I've had it before. It happens. It happens where you will have an individual that just goes off on you, and then you're there sitting and wondering, well, what did I do to for this person to reach this level? But then it takes, I would say, it takes growth and true understanding to understand that whatever is being sent out to you, that whatever energy from that person is not from this one situation. It's because this person has been hurting, or things have been boiling up, and all this situation just presents itself to a big outburst. And that's what happened when you it's like you're shaking up soda, and then you have it closed, and then when you do go to open, everything's come out. So
Exactly.
that is very true, and we really need to be careful of that, because sometimes then what we don't understand is that we may be feeling a certain way, but then when we send out those emotions, when we neglect it and we don't really deal with it, we send it off to others. We also trigger something that they may have going on, and I think that's not good as well, right?
Yes.
Because then that person eventually, I've seen it so many times. I've had it happen to me. I've had it happen to persons in my family, where you go home and like you're like, what did I do wrong? And then you start being so hard on yourself. I shouldn't have done this. I should have done. When that person, whatever had been sent out to you, wasn't really coming to you, but that was what had happened. So I think that leads to my another question. There's signs and symptoms before you reach that stage, correct?
Signs and symptoms of
the mental health being neglected, in the sense that, okay, it has reached a point that it's no longer within, it's no longer in the bottle. It's trying to come out of the bottle, and you need to do something about it before the bottle explodes.
Okay. So a lot of people start to realize, like, I've had people call in and say, well, I realize that I need to talk to somebody now because I get irritated a lot, I blow up a lot, or their difficulty in their sleeping, in their eating pattern. And so all these different changes, they start to monitor. Am I eating? Am I sleeping? Or the thoughts are just too much now. It's constant now that I can't concentrate, that I sleep and I don't feel contented, or I have difficulty in terms of engaging. I don't want to engage. It's costing me too much now to do anything.
And then you also become fearful, like whenever a person blows on you, I'm afraid to interact again with that person. I'm afraid
You're afraid to interact with that person, but then imagine now you've experienced your own challenges, and then someone is triggered, and then they respond to you. Then how do you respond now? Do they trigger something from your experience that you haven't dealt with? And then now you're not only battling, I'm dealing with this person. Let's say it's a person at work. Now I have to deal with this person on a regular, but this person triggered something in me that I haven't been dealing with. And now I have to struggle with being present at work, being present with the person who has triggered me, but also dealing with things that I've been dealing with that I've never dealt with. And so sometimes that's why the air at work feels toxic and heavy. It's because everybody's triggered and everybody's dealing with their own thing, that you walk into a room and you're like, whoa.
You could feel it. You could feel it, right?
So our mental health, our psychological and emotional well-being impacts every different areas of our life. So when we invest in our mental health, we are investing in our new line of generation. So we are healing our generation, like you said. We're also investing in ourselves holistically, that when we sleep, we really enjoy it. When we rest, we really enjoy it. And when we're happy, we totally enjoy it. Some people will say, I'm happy, but I'm not really happy. All right?
Yeah, it's sometimes that happens. Like you're living in the moment, so to speak. You say, okay, I'm happy. Yes, I'm having fun, but then you're thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about issues of tomorrow, the following day, and what you have to do, and this that you have to complete. So in essence, with all of this on your mind, you're not really enjoying this happiness as you're
so you're not enjoy it fully.
Right.
So you're just partial. And so sometimes we hold on to we are holding it to it so partially that our body didn't even remember it as much.
Yeah.
So
it's not registered.
It's not registered completely. What registered completely is when we're not having a good time, when we're sad, and when we're mad.
You remember all
And
those
what
moments.
happens is that stay in our body, right? And so the good feelings aren't even enough, compelled enough to help balance it, because we're not getting that good feeling in totality. We get the bad feelings, the sad, the anger, the irritability, the I don't feel right, the numbness. We get that in full blown. But the good one, so it's hard sometimes to be able to balance it. So that's why I encourage people to have a balanced look. It's not being totally positive, because sometimes people think, oh, I have to be positive about everything. And
Everything, yes.
No, that's toxic positivity. We will get stressed. We will get annoyed. Our body tells us when something in our environment is not right. What we want is that whatever challenges we experience, we say that I could deal with it. I could handle it. I could process it. And yes, we'll be thrown off a little, and that's normal. But we don't get thrown off so much that we can't do nothing. And so that's where the balance comes in. It's not to say your life will be perfect. No one has that.
And all
perfect
smiley,
life.
smiling. And I like that. I've seen this quote that says, it's okay not to be okay. And I think, I mean, if you say it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I get it. But really say it and understand what it means. It goes deeper than the surface, because saying it's okay not to be okay is not just saying like, okay, if something happens, you'll be fine. So it means that whenever, okay, let's say I'm not feeling myself, I'm not feeling this, I am feeling down, I want to just break down, I want to let it all out, I should be allowed to do that in whichever environment, whether it be at work, at home and stuff, without judgment. But people will say, you'll be okay, you'll be fine, you're strong, you'll get over it, it's just a bump in the road. People don't understand that for me, letting all of this out to you, and then that's the response I get back. Basically, you're telling me, put a band-aid, as we were speaking earlier, put a band-aid on it and move on. You just fell, get up, move on. But people don't understand, sometimes when you fall, you need to stay down there before you can get up again.
Yes, right. And I like that example. When you get a scrape, that hurts, right?
Right, it does.
And you cry?
Yes.
Yes. So it should be the same way emotionally. And that's why having conversation like these is important. And finding your tribe. It's a word I like to use, because you want to find people that it's going to be okay. Because those languages like, don't worry, tomorrow will be better. Yes, but today bad. So I want to cry today, right? So it's the more we talk about it, but it's also understanding, apart from saying the words, it's creating an environment whereby it's okay, cry. Like I will tell people, cry. It's okay to cry.
And and even when you talk about it, which we're going to talk a little bit later on in our second half, because we're going to go into a break currently, even as parents sometimes, I think we falter in that era. Sometimes we say things and we don't realize the implication that we have on what we're saying to these children and how it affects them. And that's why I said it goes from generation to generation, because if let's say my child falls and hits the ground and start to cry and start crying, you say, "Hey man, come on, stop the cry for nothing," and be tough, be stop to be weak. And so from a very young age, they're taught that crying, expressing true emotions of what you're experiencing in that moment shows weakness.
Yeah.
And that they take on with them later on in life, that whatever situation they approach, they have that same mindset, that same way of thinking that, okay, if I let this get to me, if I break down, if I give up, if I want to step back, if I want to quit, means that I'm being weak. So we're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back. But to our viewers that are watching us at home, I hope that you've been enjoying this conversation as much as I have been, because I'm learning a lot. And I know you are too. So stick around, because we have so much more coming up. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
More than 32% of adults over the age of 20 suffer from high blood pressure, according to the Center for Disease Control. High blood pressure is a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease and mortality, as well as among the top causes for other chronic health conditions. anger and frustration has been shown to raise the level of stress hormones in the body, triggering negative health effects such as high blood pressure. That's a fact, but there's hope. Those with hypertension have seen dramatic benefits from learning to forgive. In one study, those who scored high on anger test no longer required blood pressure medication when participating in a forgiveness program. As someone said, you simply cannot swallow a poison pill and hope the other person dies. So forgive now and see your blood pressure going down.
My name is Amini Anderson and I'm the General Manager for our Yadpa bookstore here in Belize City. At our bookstore, we cater at offering books that can help you live a healthier lifestyle. We offer books that can help your marriage and your family life to be even more sweeter. We haven't forgotten the kids, we have books for them, and we also have books that will help you grow in your spiritual life. We're located inside the headquarters of the Belize Union of Seventh-day Adventists that is located on 3A Street, Kings Park. Our phone numbers are 223-3048, or you can get us on our cell number at 660-2378. Our working hours are from 8 to 12:15 from Monday to Thursday, 1 to 4:15, and on Friday we're open from 8 to 12. You can also find us on Facebook. Our name for our page is Yadpa Belize. ATN has partnered with us, and for every purchase made using the code ATN21, a proceed will be going to them to help them further in their ministry as well. So feel free, come visit us. I'm sure you're going to find something that will be a blessing to you all. Thank you.
A study published in the Journal of the American Dietetic Association found that toddlers aged 12 months and older consumed a third of their daily calories from snacking between meals, with the snacks becoming less nutritious as the children got older. Dietary patterns low in fruits and veggies and high in sweets and saturated fats began to develop between the ages of 12 months and 24 months, and this pattern tended to be established by 24 months. That's a fact. But there's hope. Parents can establish the foundation for a healthy diet early in life when eating habits and preferences are being formed. Simple dietary changes, such as offering more nutritious snacks, can help prevent obesity and chronic disease in our children. So switch the gummy bear for blueberries and see them growing healthier and happier.
Welcome back to Defining Your Health. We are talking about mental health, and today we have clinical psychologist Mrs. Deshane Lopez. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay, and we have been discussing various aspects of mental health, the importance of mental health, what happens when our mental health is neglected. And before we went into our commercial break, I had asked you a question, and I would like to talk a little bit about that before we continue on, because as mentioned, a lot of the things that we see as parents, we don't understand that in years to come it has a negative impact on our children. So we need to be careful in the way how we allow our children to express themselves and how we allow them to deal with pain.
Yes, true. So before I even start, I want to put this disclaimer out there that parents, I know you're trying your best. But indeed, we have inherited a lot of the language that our parents and their parents have used, and that has been traumatic. And sometimes we say, well, I gone through that and I'm okay. Mm-hmm. But I always ask parents, what is the one thing you say you'll do different, and why? And how do you feel after you say something like don't cry or stop it, or you yell or you go over the top? What emotion comes next? Those are our tell signs that what we experienced when we were young, we didn't like. A lot of parents say, I'm doing this different. But sometimes they go to the extreme. And I get it, we spend a lot of the time hearing this thing that it becomes our norm, our go-to automatically. And so we tell our children the same thing that our parents tell us, because that's what we know, So I can't say I hold parents accountable, because you do what you know. So now it's an awareness in terms of how do you want to change? How do you want to change your generational line now so that your children don't feel the way that you feel when you think about that emotion that came up when you said something and you realize that, I feel ugly, that gut feeling. Now, I'm not going to say that because you're in that process of feeling mean that it won't happen, because we're not perfect. But it's allowing that space that when you do it, then you allow the child to feel. And one thing that we don't like to do is admit when we're wrong. But I think as parents, if we could do that, we are modeling to our children how to have healthy relationship, how to accept when we're wrong. Because then we're modeling to them that we're not perfect either, and we don't expect you to be perfect. So I did something wrong, mommy did something wrong, or mommy didn't mean it, mommy was having a bad day and I'm sorry. And then what you're doing is you're teaching them how to accept faults. You're teaching them that, hey, I don't need you to be perfect. Because children see parents as this perfect being, as you are my everything, right? And so, exactly. So if as parents we appear as we don't have any faults, our children will feel that that's the life that they need to live, that they need to live a life with no faults. And that's a heavy burden to carry.
I like that. And to our viewers who are watching, I hope that you got that just as I did, because it's okay to understand that it will happen. We're not perfect, as she mentioned. It will happen. We will have times when we slip and we will say these things to our children. But always that feeling, that, as you mentioned, that ugly feeling that you get, and going back, apologizing, and letting them know, like, okay, it was not okay for mommy to treat you this way, and that, I was wrong. I think does set the standard for where healthy relationship can grow, not only in the future, but currently between you and your child. And it gives a closer connection to both of you. And I think it's a lot of the time, us as parents, we take it hard on ourselves. We start feeling like we're a horrible parent, and all these things that eventually has negative effects on us. So when we process in that way, okay, well, I've done this, but But I can change it. I can work on it better. Then it works both ways for
Yes,
both
and we're a work in
parties.
progress. We
Yes.
are a work in progress.
Yes.
We will fall short. That's a given, and that's what I want
Yes.
people to get it. And I know it's going to be hard because we want to be better than what we've experienced. That is where that drive comes from. You have to be this. This is what it means to be a parent. Remember I said, when you were a child, you look up to your parents as, this is what perfection looks like. Or this is what I need to do completely different.
You never want to feel
and
it.
then you never want to feel. You will only fail your child when you don't want to work at it at all. But it's always going to be a process. It's because one, it's human connection. We're living and we're learning every single day, and you're going based on the information that you have. And so, making faults, that is life. We will fail, and that's what I want people to get. We will fail in life. It's okay. I failed in this year. I failed momentarily.
I like that.
Okay, I slipped. I went over the top. Then I have to figure out, okay, what triggered me? Because I can't calm my child if I'm not in a calm mood.
My mom always said that she always said, Dinah, talk peaceful to be peaceful. And sometimes, like, I remember growing up and I had a situation and I'm telling her and this happened and I'm all in my emotion and she would look at me, Dinah, talk peaceful to be peaceful. And in that moment, I'm like, Mom, you're not helping. But then as I grew older and then that came back to me and I realized why she was telling me that, because the moment in which, like I kind of calm and I slow down and I was better able to kind of pace myself and figure out, okay, so this is why this happened. This is why I reacted this way. But in the heat of the moment, all those emotions running up high, then, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So there's so much truth to that. And I think something important that we need to understand is that mental health, when it comes to children, adults, it's, I would say, different. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, because to a sense, we cannot expect that the way in which adult processes a different situation or scenarios in life would be the same a child will do. Right?
Yes, so it will look different in a child. And a lot of times parents think, well, children have no worries. Their bills get paid for, they get food,
They're
all
happy.
these things. Everything's supposed to be perfect. But they feel all the emotions that we feel. And how that look like would be different for them. Some children will close in, similar to adults. Some children, you'll see more of the misbehavior that we talk about. Those, when we say, oh, it doesn't want attention, instead of saying attention, the child wants connection. The child wants to connect.
Right.
That's what the child need at that time, but the child doesn't even know to articulate what is it that they're experiencing. So they're going to do things because they need that connection there. Now, if I'm triggered and the child is triggered, then who calm who?
Right.
Right? And so when we look at behavior as language, we have a different mindset of how we approach it. And I'm a psychologist, but I still get overwhelmed too. And so I have to practice calming myself down so I could calm my baby down. And when I am calm, my baby gets calm. And every time I do it, I smile like, yes, it works. It really does work. When I get calm and I do the deep breathing, my baby gets calm. So we have that connection. It's called co-regulation. We're co-regulating. I'm helping you regulate. And it's the same way. If we're in distress, our child gets it. Our child feeds it. So how it manifests will be different in terms of the child temperament, but the child will also mimic other behaviors that the child see around them. And so if when you mad, you don't want nobody to talk to you, you don't want nobody to look pile, then the child will mimic that.
Right.
The child in their own form based on their level. So in our look exactly the same. They're like, no. Then I will touch on it, just a bow, 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 bow. It's their way of saying, I know you did it me right now, and I'm going to touch me, I just need my emotion. So it will look different, but it's the same concept. And so a lot of what I like to tell parents is what's happening. What's happening in the environment. And I like to tell parents, how are you processing? I said, because the challenges in child it's happening at home. And so children it's much easier to see it in children. And that's because it's the unsaid, it's elephant in the room, but the children inherit those responses in terms of this is how I'm supposed to deal with it. And then sometimes if it's a lot of emotional, so you talk about emotional charge right now, imagine you saying that as an adult. Imagine a child that doesn't even have the language to articulate what it's experiencing. And you've already have some strategies. Depending on the age of the child, their coping strategies may be smaller than you. Imagine having small coping strategies and big emotions. And that's why we as parents, we co-regulate so that we're helping them to calm down, and we're also in that process teaching them, so we're increasing their coping strategies.
Right. And then as you're talking there, I'm just sitting down and I'm taking this all in because I can relate to a lot of the stuff that you're saying. And whenever a mother is pregnant, and one of the things I always remember my doctor telling me is try to stay calm, try to take it easy, because whatever you're feeling, the child is feeling. And then, later on in life, you could have some kind of psychological effect, especially if you're an anxious person, nervous, or, it will somehow, whenever that child grow up, you will see it, how it said, presents itself, in the child. So we need to be careful of, I'm not saying disregard your emotion, but you need to be careful of how you deal with your emotions, so that when your child, especially if it's a child of age that can see and mimic, as you said, they will know, okay, if they see mommy, whenever she's stressed, she shout at that ear, shout at this and shout, they will mimic that, and they will carry that on in their relationship. But if they see that, you sit down, we talk about things, we have family talks and stuff like that, it's okay for us to share, then they will also carry that. So I really like that. Another thing that we want to talk about this morning is counseling. Now, when you talk about counseling, people say, well, I don't need to see any counselor, or I don't need to tell nobody my business. I don't need to go sit down in one dark room in a chair and just tell my business. I don't feel like that will work for me. And especially me coming from a religious background, and we've always been told, don't put your trust in man, put your trust in God. Take all your problems to Jesus. And there's no argument to that. We know that God is the supreme being who can indeed help us with our problem. But I believe also God have placed people in our path, persons in the world, to assist in helping others in it to find their way. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because to a viewer at home, maybe you're feeling the same thing. Well, all these symptoms that Ms. Deshane is talking about, all these feeling and everything, you're in this talk, you're feeling it, you experience it, you can relate, but what are you going to do about it? So we want to talk a little bit of the importance of counseling and some of the benefits that can come from it.
Yeah, so people think about counseling as a dark room, laying down in a long chair and a therapist probably with a notepad saying, how are you feeling right now? Unfortunately, that has to do with the media. But that's not really what counseling really is. In fact, in here it's pretty bright.
Right. I don't feel like that here, guys. I don't.
Right. Counseling is not just talking. It's about processing and feeling emotions and learning strategies. You mentioned in terms of what are some of the, I'm not going to counsel because I have God. Counseling is not contradicting God any at all. You can have Jesus, you could have God, and you could have a therapist. It's not conflicting. Right? So I want people to look at it as this is another part of your journey. Remember, we talk about mental health and that well-being. And I added spirituality, I added all these different components because they're interrelated. It's not one against the other. God will always be there. So whenever I think about counseling, there's always this story that pops up in my head. And I don't remember the details of it. But it's about 3 men getting coins and what they're going to do with it. One parted it, I believe, one buried it, and one invested.
Right.
I like that because it's the same thing with us. God gave us different qualities, different specialties. We're going to hide and not do anything because God will provide. But why can't we be like the one that invested? You know, when we invest in ourselves, we're taking care of ourselves. We're taking care of our entire well-being because we want to be able to enjoy life fully. God doesn't have an issue with us seeing therapists because we're not taking the place of God.
Right.
Therapy is a place of processing your emotion, a safe place where one, you don't have to be anything but yourself. You get to feel it, but we're teaching you. Remember, we talk about generationally, we've been taught how to not experience and feel our emotions, that we just put it aside.
Right.
So in your therapy room, it's learning how to feel those emotions slowly, weaning you in so that you build that confidence that I could deal with it. And then learning the strategies, having a space whereby you could talk about what's happening without judging yourself. Because remember, when you talk about experience, we have these judgments come up. And so we teach you now how to be graceful with yourself, how to understand what's happening. So you get education about understanding the processes, what's happening with the brain and why. So for example, we were talking about when we flip, when the bottle bursts. There's a disconnect with our thoughts and our emotions at that point, that we're in survival mode and we're just reacting from an emotional component. So when you're in therapy, we make that connections and we allow the connections to occur that way that you don't hold it and you're able to process it, release it, use the strategies. Because a session is 50 minutes. You go out and you practice those strategies. So this is short term to help you reach to a point that you could process and do what you're experiencing.
I like that. And I think you did a good job in explaining the relationship or how they intertwine together, spirituality and also counseling. And I see we have some props here in front of us. What are these all about?
Yeah, so I like to tell people therapy doesn't have to be just talk, because I understand that talking could be heavy. And sometimes we don't even have the words. It's like, and we can't even articulate what we're experiencing. And so one of the modalities that I use is sensory therapy. So we utilize the sensory, we utilize our emotional, unconscious processing to be able to process what we are experiencing. So sensory is the feeling of the sense. So we have our body is focusing on the sensation. And we have miniatures here. And I would usually ask, depending on what is the concern, to create a story or an image of what is happening or what you would want to happen. And then we use that as a processing point. And while we're doing that, sometimes I don't get all the details, and that's okay. I don't need all the details. It's for you to process. It's for you to have that space where you could feel it. So you don't have to always talk. Thought therapy works and it's beneficial, but there are different tools and modalities that we use to help that processing. So if you would indulge me, I'd like to ask you to create a scene of your happy day. And if there's something that is not there, let's use our imagination and have something represented.
Okay. Alright, let's see. I think these are persons, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, a female. Oh, yeah. This can work. So I think that's it.
Okay. What was it like putting things together and just finding it?
Well, it forced me to go back in like my archives and to really to see what was my happy day. I think that made me remember a lot of things.
Because I see you're smiling.
Yes, it makes me remember a lot of things that I don't often think about. So that was because what I have here, I have me, my husband, my daughter. If you notice, the trees were out. We have horse and an animal there, but my happy day is usually when we are out. My husband is an adventurous person. My daughter is just the same. And due to work and everything, we always, my husband and I were always busy. And the only time we get to unwind is like, I remember for the Easter weekend, when everybody was choosing to go to beach, we went to Hidden Valley Reserve, bush. You would say, why would you want to go to bush in Easter? But we went there, we did mountain biking, we were out in nature, and it was, to me, that it was the best time of my life. There was no TV, there was no internet, nothing. It was just the three of us, and that really, that's a day that a weekend I will never forget.
And I could have gotten that because I noticed it was only the three of you guys. So I could see that your family is like your core. It's like, this is where happiness is. This is what is important to me. And green, nurturing. You know, even with the animals, there's a sense of nurture. And so what I heard from your explanation also was that you and your husband are nurturing your relationship. So it's things like these we'll use to facilitate conversation and processing and feeling the different emotions and just going through. So depending on what it is that we're working on, we use this to facilitate and help that processing. So if you notice, you were talking and you were smiling. And yes, I could have asked you about your Easter or a happy moment. But sometimes just playing with the miniatures and doing all that, it has that sensory component as well.
You feel like a sentimental feeling because a little bit there I felt like tearing up inside, like, you know, remembering that moment and the emotion that it gave.
Yeah. So this is one of the modalities that I use in my sessions.
Okay, well, this is a very, I could see the purpose behind it, and I really like that what I have seen here. I know the viewers, you may not be able to see her entire office, but everything that I've seen, I've already took pictures of quotes, is that you've put a lot of time and effort into making this place not just any usual therapy office. It's you're trying to give that, I would say you're putting yourself into it, putting you to it, in the sense that I can see you're a bright person. You're a person that likes how you would say, you like things that connect. And I can see with your teddy bear, like everything, every aspect of here, it's for a purpose, a specific purpose. And I think that says a lot about you as a counselor. And I know that to our viewers at home who may be watching and probably going through something, I know it's not always easy. And as I had mentioned to her, it's not always affordable for all of us to seek these type of help that is out there. But I know that working towards, you know, as she had mentioned, those different strategies of how to improve yourself. It always starts with you. Always remember that. It always starts with you. And when you start doing things to better yourself, then you will realize that you will reach to that point in which you need to get the help you need. And also that will help you to have a more fulfilled life.
So I always say it's an investment, because even if at this point you can't financially, right? Mm-hmm. Remember when we talk about what happens when you don't take care of your psychological well-being. The thing that you're holding on to, I say, I got to do this, and so that goes on the break. Eventually that gets impacted. So it's figuring out a way to access different services in the meantime, but put therapy in your budget.
In your budget.
Yes. So that way, the things that we talk about in terms of the impact of not focusing on your mental health doesn't get impacted down the line.
Right. And I've been enjoying this conversation today, and it's so sad that we have to come to a close. But before we go off, I would like you to share your information, your contact information, the name of your business, so that interested person that is watching this video right now, they may be able to contact you.
Okay. So if you're interested in counseling services, you can come to Counseling and Psychological Services. We're located at 2A South Park Street in Belize City, right in front of Memorial Park. Or you could call us at 636-0823 or find us on Facebook at Counseling and Psychological Services.
Okay, well, there you have it. If you need Mrs. Deshane, she have given us free counseling services today. But if you want to go more on a personal note with her, you have her contact information there. I'm sure you won't regret the call, because I am here and I can tell you it's very, very welcoming. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you, Ms. Deshane, for your time, for your patience in having us being here in your space to share this beautiful and important health topic to our viewers out there today. I want to thank you at home for watching. We hope that this program has somehow touched you and that you will have all the information that you need in order to take better care of your mental health. So once again, thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you for another edition of Defining Your Health. Goodbye and take care.